Maru Sandamado. So, what are we looking at on the discussion board this morning? There are three major issues that we have distilled from the big stories of the week that I want to talk to you or have a conversation about. The first one affects everybody except myself and the people in, actually affects me, but the people in this, my panelists, it does not affect them. It has to do with trotro fares and the challenges that passengers go through to get trotro lately. It's something that happens in December where there are a lot of people traveling, and these people would want to get on board a trotro, but the trotro is never available because the numbers are more. Now we are seeing that in January, and we are told that the GPRTU or the drivers of these trotros are deliberately trying to set up the government or sabotage the government. So we'll talk about that. Then the Elephant Party, the NPP, is in the news again. They are preparing to go to the polls on 31st January to elect a flag bearer. But even before they do that, they are on an expulsion spree. They are sacking one of the most important people, not just in the NPP, but in this country when it comes to national development and politics. Professor Kwabena Frimpong Boateng, he had his own issues as a foremost fighter against Galamsey. But that notwithstanding, his contributions for the NPP have been enormous. And today, the party is planning to remove him. Why? Because he said the party is a joke. And the third issue we'll be looking at has to do with the LGBTQI plus debate. You remember everything the NDC said against it in opposition? The claim now is that the NDC is promoting the very thing that it was fighting, and that there are teacher manuals that are being rolled out, which teacher manuals contain some description of what gender is. People were taking issue with that. Reverend Tim Fojo raised that. So we'll talk about that one. But the first topic we want to look at, and before I tell you what the first topic is, let me introduce my guest in studio. So Professor Titus Bewo is a member of parliament, Beyo, not Bewo, member of parliament for Lambusie in the Upper West region. He used to be a member of the Ghana Medical Association, and then he ran away. Prof, you're welcome to the big issue.
Thank you, and good morning to your viewers.
How are you doing?
I'm good. I don't think I ran away.
You ran away from...
I served the association faithfully, rising to the level of general secretary.
You ran away from the theater to go and be in the chamber. I mean, this is not fair.
No, it's all in public service.
It's all public service.
Yes.
Why are you wearing blue though? MPP colors. Why?
Oh,
I
don't think blue now means MPP.
Oh, mostly.
No.
Okay. Good to have you, bro.
Glad to be here.
My next panelist...
Good morning to the co-panelists.
Thank you, good morning. My next panelist is... the NDC used to call it propaganda secretary. The MPP just calls it director of communication. But I think it's similar, is it not? Honorable Richard Ahiagba is director of communications of the New Patriotic Party. Efogan, you're welcome.
Thank you, Mara.
Do you dissociate yourself with the propaganda secretary title, or you accept?
No, we don't accept that nomenclature.
But it's a nice thing. But that's what you do.
Well, it's diabolic.
But you propagate your agenda. That's propaganda.
You know the man who ended the name?
Yes.
And you see how he operates?
Yes.
Okay. I don't need to mention his name.
No.
It's a tag. I don't think he wants to continue.
Oh, you are referring to the Bolshevik era.
Yes. We chose the right one, and then they actually went with it also. They have
because you bullied them into saying that thing is. But
good things bully people naturally.
Very well, welcome, Richard.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Nice to see you in the chair.
Nice. My next guest is a former friend of mine. He's grown grey beard now, so I've dissociated myself from him. Duncan Amwa is the executive director of the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers. You're welcome.
Sanda, thank you and thanks for disassociating.
How are you doing?
See, you're the young man. Right now, you fear grey hair, and it's okay. One day you'll grow to meet it.
Until then. You're welcome, Duncan.
Thank you, Sanda.
So what are we starting with? Transport issues and challenges people encounter getting trotro in these past few days. My colleague in the newsroom, Niaikwe Okain, has a report of how people struggle at bus stops and bus terminals.
Getting a car to your destination after work in Accra has often been time-consuming, highly stressful, and this has often been as a result of traffic congestion or public transport challenges. Today, the situation is no different here at La Paz, precisely the Las Palmas junction, as several commuters have poured onto the streets in a bid to get transport to their respective destinations. Many are jostling to make way into the minivans that approach them to get on board to their respective destinations, and it's been a hectic one at that. Those who do not have that strength to struggle make sure that they stand waiting for hours before they can be able to get a vehicle that is spacious enough to accommodate them. I have some of these commuters here. I would want to approach a few of them and engage them, find out what exactly the situation is. Sir, good evening and thanks for joining us. Sir, we want to find out from you, where are you heading to and for how long have you been here?
Oh, I'm heading to Awoshi, and I went to buy some food stuff, so I'm going back home.
For how long have you been here?
Let's say 2 hours now.
2 hours?
2 hours now, because there's no car available, so I have to wait. People are struggling to get car, but still, I'm still waiting to get vehicle to my end, but yes.
But it's strange that you've been here for 2 hours and you are not getting vehicles. Some 30 minutes and 20 minutes, but 2 hours is quite strange.
It's true, because where the car is going, I've not been getting car to where I'm going. That's why I've been here for a long. So I'm still waiting if I'll get vehicle.
Is this your first time here picking a vehicle, or you come here every month?
No, I used to be coming here. For the past 2 weeks, I've been coming here.
And this has been the situation?
Today it's been so hectic. I've not been getting vehicle. That's what I'm saying, almost 2 hours.
I'm a butcher at Malata, selling meat at Malata butcher shop.
So what are you doing here currently at La Paz?
Yes, I've come to take a car to go home. Okay. Yeah, and I said I told to.
For how long have you been here?
I've been here about 15 minutes or at least 1 hour.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Just in search of car?
Yes.
To where?
To
So.
Yes.
And why? Why are you not getting a car?
Because there are no cars. And people are standing in a hot queue for many hours. And right now, if you want a trotro or a car to go home, you won't get, unless you take Uber or Okada. And the Okada too is very expensive. But because of there are no cars, and you too, if you are a woman, then you want to go home and cook for your husband and your children, by all means, you have to take the Okada. So any amount they mention, you have to pay. Other than that, you stay up till some time.
A very sad situation and spectacle there on the streets of Accra. This has forced the vice president, because the president is not in the country, it's in Davos. So the vice president went around yesterday to some of the state-owned transport terminals, and she made some commitments and announcements. Let's watch Professor Nana Jeno-Pokwajiman.
So we want to organize and expand our transport services to promote and improve access, to ensure affordability and security too for the motoring public. We are taking steps. So we are therefore taking steps to improve the public transport system, not only by retooling, but also, of the state services, but especially of the private sector too. And I hope that answers your concern about the support that you need.
So that's Professor Nana Jeno-Pokwajiman, the Vice President of the Republic. So let me come in studio and let me say that I have other guests who will be joining me via Zoom. Franklin Kujo is President of Imani Africa. He will be joining us in a bit. Dr. Bernard Abeku-Atta is an urban transport planning analyst. He will be joining us. And all the way from Abrochire, the man who chased the elephant to the bush, Dr. Arthur Kennedy, would be joining us if you know what I'm talking about. But let me start in studio. And I think, Duncan, it would be appropriate to start with you. You deal a lot with these transport organizations and also deal with the government on the management of our transport space. This new phenomenon we are seeing, it's sabotage, is it not?
Sander, let me say good morning to you and of course to my colleague panelists and those joining us, those at home. Sander, things are getting to a head. These are systemic issues that we have refused to deal with over the years. We've appointed transport ministers The only role that you see them publicly play, usually, is to call the transport unions to come and negotiate for transport fare adjustments, 10%, 5%, that's all they do. But if you look at public transport planning, it's been lacking completely. And so we sort of depend on a system that is not funded nor adequately regulated. Why do I say this? Most of the buses that we use, the smaller buses, are privately, the minibuses are privately procured. I'll take us back to the early 2000s. You recall the banks had gotten involved because some amount of research had been done that suggested that instead of putting their monies into treasury bills and all of that, they should go into the public transportation space. So ADB financed a couple of these buses, EcoBank. A lot of the companies actually bought these minibuses to ferry people to and fro. But again, the underlying challenge was not addressed. So it wasn't sustainable even to the banks, those with bigger money. So imagine if individuals are rather expected to sustain that sector. There will be an eventual collapse at some point because of two reasons. One, we are not able to scientifically determine the cost per head per kilometer in Ghana. So everything is sentimental, is emotional. From Odoko to La Paz or Kaneshi or whatever. Let's collect 5 cities. Oh no, 6 will do. There's no scientific basis whatsoever. And in fact, we have advocated for that to become the norm for years.
But do we have that anywhere else so that if I'm moving from Ashaiman to Accra, the number of kilometers will determine how much I pay and that I know how much I pay per kilometer?
You see, Sanda, there's a very useful lesson from the petroleum sector where I usually would focus on. We are able to determine the cost per liter per kilometer. So for the haulage companies that transport fuel from one point to the other. So if he is carrying 17,000 or 14,500 or 54,000 or 27,000, you're able to determine that the volume of product he is carrying over a distance, right? And the longer they go, the more you reduce the cost per kilometer, because then again, it wouldn't make sense to say that the car would then be buying, more tires, more brake parts, because it's already in motion. Mm-hmm. It will not be paying the driver additional incomes because it's already driving. So over 156 kilometers, the first 156 will probably attract the full freight. Between 156 to 300 is net of some 5 or 10%, so that it doesn't become overly expensive because somebody drove to Wa or Boko or Bolga because of the distance. So the petroleum sector is able to determine that, and efficiently so, able to pay these guys who haul petroleum products. But when you come to dry cargo, when you come to the human, ferrying from one point to the other, we leave it to the whims and caprices of, people's emotions. So the transport minister calls the union says 20%, minister says, 10. They haggle and juggle, come to 15%. Eventually, the union will still have a problem. Sanda, you know why? Their overheads would have been captured at the said meeting, right? But the state of their buses. And these buses, if you do typical finance or accounting, are to be depreciated over a period. If it is a 10-year period or 20-year period, the buses are already old. We are not thinking of replacing them or saving to be able to replace them. We only think of the fact that I need to go and buy brake pad. Brake pad is 150 Ghana. So I input that into my cost. And then I say, okay, if I'm able to get 5 cities per head per kilometer, I'll be able to run effectively. So eventually, the guys that I knew some 5 years ago with some of these, but they've lost them. The second other critical factor is that we say in Ghana, your car must be roadworthy. And then we go to sleep forgetting that the road must also be a little car worthy, so that a normal vehicle with a 16-inch tire or a 14-inch tire can be able to ply it. Sanda, a lot of people are forced in Ghana to go for 4x4s, not because they want, but because of the clearance and the nature of our roads. Roads are so terrible in most parts. You are lucky to drive on very nice roads within the central business district and, you know, some nice parts. The moment you move out 10 kilometers off the capital itself, the kind of roads you meet, mind you, these drivers would have to ply everywhere across the country. There are places you may not find even tarred roads. And so, Sanda, the kind of pressure that these drivers would have to undergo on a daily, driving a 14-inch rim, especially if you look at those with VITs, the Daewoo Matis in rural areas, the places like in Koko that had
like
the
Lambusie.
As Lambusie, yes. So we simply refuse to deal with the systemic issue, right? And it's gotten to a head. Don't forget, lastly, that there's also population explosion. There's rural-urban drift, right? So there will be a lot more pressure as people move from, you know, the periphery to the center. We have no plan for anything, Sanda. The only time we have a conversation between the transport ministry and the driver bodies is when we are discussing 10%, 5%.
So there isn't a continuous monitoring and there isn't the support from the state.
The state, there's no reinvestment, there's no attempt whatsoever to make, you know, driving conditions any better for these drivers.
Okay, I was thinking of this. Transportation is a national security issue. We've left it in the hands of private people.
Agreed.
Should the state have taken over public transport? Because what we are seeing the past few days, imagine if the state was in charge, the state cannot sabotage itself. But in this case, if the private sector wants to sabotage the state, they can do that, huh?
Why I would disagree completely with anybody that has that notion that the private sector is sabotaging the state. The state has also been involved. Don't forget. The state has introduced Metro Mass, STC, Ayalolo, and recently, before Richard's party left, they were bringing in those small electric buses. So the state has intervened. It's not that the state has left.
That's very significant
It
in
is.
the scheme of things.
If you look at the number of Metro Mass buses that we had at one point, right? The state itself could not sustain Metro Mass.
Yes, so that's what I'm saying. So the state has contributed, but the contribution...
So wait, Sanda, if the state itself, what they invested in was not sustainable, and so their buses are off the roads, the state expects that the private people, right, who had no sustainability whatsoever program, should be able to keep the system fluid and running. Yet what the state itself pumped millions into several years ago, today if you go to Metro Mass and Ayalolo, I'm sure the number of buses that they can be able to put out for our comfort, you can count them on
few.
some. So they invested. But the same deplorable road conditions, the same cost per head per kilometer, that should have been scientifically proven, so that if I am taking, let's say, 10 cities or 1 city per kilometer, of that 1 city, 20 pesos is going into refinancing the bus, right? 20 pesos goes into my spare parts, 20 pesos goes into the recurrent, the fuel and all of that, 20 goes into insurance and DVLA charges, 20 probably for profit, right? If you're able to determine that scientifically, anytime the bus moves, there's some amount of money that you are saving to be able to replace it over a period of time.
Okay.
But we don't do this, Sanda.
Very well.
So drivers are not sabotaged. For me, I'll be disappointed with anybody that holds the notion that, look, the driver wants to make money.
So he will not
Sanda,
park
if
his car.
you buy a bus, you want the bus to go and work. Would you want to park the bus because sabotage? At this point, I don't think We are being fair to them.
Okay. I'll come in studio and talk to my politician friends because they are in charge of policy. Let me try and get a few more independent minds before. Franklin Kujo is president of Imani Africa. He's joining us via Zoom. Franklin, you're welcome to The Big Issue. Sorry, you should be welcoming me.
Hello.
Yes, Franklin, how are you?
Oh, I'm good. I'm good. Thank you very much. Listen, how are you? I can see you. You are doing well.
Yeah, I'm doing well. You,
Right.
people may not know this, but I know that you live somewhere in the rural part of Pokwasi, and I know how bad your road is. And Duncan here is saying that the Chotro issue should not be seen in isolation, and that it's interconnected. So the poor roads lead to the breaking down of vehicles and all the challenges thereof. And so ultimately, what we are seeing on the road is our own undoing. We are not prepared, or we did not prepare to deal with this matter. I don't know what your view is on this issue.
Well, I think I understand where Duncan is coming from, but even more so, I think I must have read somewhere that the current Minister of Transport suggested that, the reasons why we're having this challenge of transportation, with people basically queuing and looking for transport, simply because, the economy is doing well, and because the economy is doing well, a lot more people are coming to town. Anyway, there's some latent, if you like, understanding about pull factors, when push and push factors, when it comes to economics, right? So maybe we can grant him that. But I think if he said that, then I'm sure he probably don't have a plan, because as a transport minister, after a whole year, he should have actually assessed the situation as we speak right now, and actually offered some maybe good advice. But having said that, look, Duncan is wrong. Look, the road network is also a big problem. It's a huge problem. Look at how long it's taking us to finish that road. The road you just referred to, the Accra, Eastern Funko, and someone leg of that road. It's beyond comprehension. I've never understood how we do things here. That the last government, those guys, the last guys in power, actually, the money was voted to fast track their work. And in the wisdom of the Minister for Rules and maybe the government, they thought that, let's not use all the money to construct such a major road, but rather let's do small, give some to some people, and then just chop the money. I mean, look, it is unconscionable. So I think that is also part of the problem. We don't prepare. Look at our public infrastructure. We don't think. What doing? You build 111 hospitals. You don't even think about the way you organize staff and critical care people to give care. You don't even have facility. Why are you putting up all these things around? You want to chop money. I'm saying that if you come back to the roads, it's the same thing. You spread yourself so thin, share the money like toffees, and thank to Ato, by the way, for not agreeing to giving people money to go and start mobilization. They should go and mobilize the money. If you are correct, then you go do your thing. So you see, there's been a deliberate attempt to destroy our public sector infrastructure, and it's all because of corruption. So for me, coming back to the ordinary citizens are crying. Look at how long it took people, how long it takes people. In fact, anytime I'm coming through from the office, I just cringe. I feel so bad for people. I'm like, Charlie, what is this? This is not fair. So the things we do to ourselves as elites, we do to the country as elites, it's unconscionable. That road should have been done probably after, I don't know, maybe after before or whatever it is. We should have finished that road long ago. And the last guy had an opportunity, got an accident bank guarantee money, and decided that, hey, okay, well, I fake way be I fake way. I mean, what kind of human beings are these? What kind of murderous, kleptocratic, wicked people are this? How do you do this to yourselves and do this to your country? Why? And the guys come and justify that. You need that to make sure. You need that to do what? When a major road like this, look at the Cape Coast road. I'm so surprised that
it's a matter of time, is it not? They've been frantically working on it.
Oh, please, what time? I mean, how do you spend all these years working on that road? What's the level? How many kilometers are we dealing with right now, really? I mean, when you take a look at all these major roads, like Cape Coast Road, this other article, then the road we are just talking about. How long should it take? Should it take more than 2-3 years to fix a road of just about 100 and something kilometers or less? What is this? I mean, look, it is not fair, and I think it's deliberate. It's wickedness, and I don't understand how you do these things. So, my brother, I think we do these things to ourselves. And by the way, we should also be making the point that, of course, I mean, road infrastructure goes hand in hand with proper transport policy. As forever, the state has never been good at managing public transport. We all know that, right? We all know that. So the least the state can do, instead of getting involved in all this transport thing, maybe they should, but I think they should rather focus on fixing the road, making the roads more travel, let people play.
So the state should not compete. I mean, I know you have a capitalist view. You are pro Donald Trump. So, but
the state should not compete.
But should the state not intervene? Because, like I was saying earlier, imagine if all the trotro drivers had to park their cars and say that unless you increase your fare, we will not go. You can't force them to put their buses on the road. But if the state had big, high occupancy buses, maybe the state can deploy them. We saw John Dumelo doing that by renting buses and bringing them to carry people at bus stops because the GPRT was simply not available.
Well, it's a good thing. I'm not saying the state should not intervene at all. But this type of state is a vampire state. This is the type of state you are dealing with. Vampire. Okay. About Shola, these are not the type of people you are talking about abroad. I mean, you go to Oslo, you go to all these places. It's organized, right? The state pays. These people, you didn't even construct proper trains. Say, I'll be this sky train. You see the sort of human beings you are dealing with.
No, that's Richard Ahangba's people.
No, it's Richard there.
He's here. They said they'll give us sky train. Even the land one is a problem.
Richard is a good brother. By the way, we are supposed to be with you there. I don't even understand this whole thing. I sit back and I get so angry. I'm like, what is happening to black? You know, I'm not saying blacks, but I don't understand. So the state should play a role, but not the type of vampires. Imagine the state is playing a role. They'll go and buy all sort of substandard stuff. It's not fair. It's not fair to the way we treat people. And I think we are getting there. Look, public service should maybe we should start examining. I won't say we should examine people before they get into it. The avarice, the wickedness, it's just too much. It's just too much. And I think, look, we really need to do a lot more for people. It's not fair at all. Okay. So the state should participate, but the state should be an intelligent state. You see, an intelligent state that participates in the economy is the one that would have prioritized the roads well, and then later put in the buses and compete because they subsidize those rates for people. I mean, this is the way to organize a society.
Okay.
Come on. You're not organizing. I just disorganized.
Yeah. Thank you, Franklin. That's Franklin Kojo, President of Human Africa. Prof, which you belong to, which is in government, has said that it is going to do what is called the big push, which is focusing on roads. It's big. Everybody's excited. I don't know how long it will take for us to fix all our roads. But in the interim, should we redirect some of our funding to maybe trains? Because I always make the point that if we fix transportation, we would have fixed half of our problems. Yeah. Imagine if we had a train that would move from Accra to, in fact, and I say this embarrassingly, that the only working commercial train we have in Ghana today was brought into this country the year I was born, 1987. Mm-hmm. It moves from Tema, Asoprochona, to Accra in the morning, then it will wait in the night, it will go back. The one that Atamils brought sometime back in 2010, 2011, the one with the Ghana flag, broken down. The one that Akufo-Addo and his people brought went to hit a Kia truck around Japan. So we don't have one on the Western Corridor. Pathetic. There's no train moving from Accra to Nsawam anymore. Only Accra Tema. Even that one, you can't really trust it.
Yeah, Umar, it's a very, very sad situation that we find ourselves in. I would want to first empathize and let the traveling public recognize that we feel the pain, we all suffer it, and we do hope that we can improve the situation. and also appreciate the stopgap measures being put in by government. These are only stopgap. We really have to look at this holistically. We appreciate the efforts of the Minister for Transport, the Vice President immediately intervening. It's a sign of a listening government that is willing to assuage the suffering of the people. And also commend my colleague John Dumelo for what he did yesterday. But if you look at what has brought us here, really, we can find remote causes and immediate causes. The immediate causes are, first, the roads is one, resulting in a lot of the vehicles broken down, as Duncan has alluded to. The other one is that, you know, there is a sudden return of people to commercial activity following the break. And so you would expect that there will be low activity in terms of transportation during the holiday, but there is a peak just before and a peak after. So we are suffering that peak. This is not entirely new. I think it will settle. But it's really a reflection of the very lack of planning and deliberate effort to tackle our transportation. So that takes us to the remote causes. And number one is what you have mentioned. The unimodal mode of transportation in this country. We have said this, and I tackled it not from the point of view of a transport expert, but from a medical point of view. When we looked at the carnage on our road, way back around 2018, and then in the early 2021, in fact, the GMA, Ghana Medical Association, did an entire conference on transport and the road traffic accident. And it was a clear recommendation that to the extent that we have just a unimodal form of transportation.
Please explain unimodal. Some of us, we didn't do science.
Okay, I mean, you alluded to it. If you go to most countries, you would have other modes of transport. We are not depending exclusively on the road. Here,
so there's train, there's water transport, there's air transport.
There's air transport. Even on the road, in the big cities like this, you'll find trams.
There's even zip line. No, I mean zip line, the rope that you climb and cross.
Fine. Yes. So you realize that any country that has tackled or is thinking about population expansion and all of that, wanting to reduce carnage on your road, will have to deploy multiple forms of transportation. But we have consistently emphasized on only road transport. Unfortunately, no matter what we do, we will never be able to solve this problem to the extent that we focus on the roads. The roads are important, but we have to add other modes of transport. You've mentioned the train. Look at what the trains can do to us. If we had commercial train, cargo train, one, the roads will last longer because these heavy trucks crossing to Burkina, crossing to Mali that are damaging our roads will not be there because the cargo of the rail will complement this, and it will be quicker, it will be cheaper, and so they will not damage the roads for us. Because of that, there's a lot of pressure on the roads, and the roads are not able to sustain. I can understand the concept of the big push infrastructure and why His Excellency has to come in, because it is an immediate to intermediate long-term response to our years of neglect on the road. And when you are saddled with such situation, you have to start from somewhere. We do recognize that we need the roads. We do recognize that you need trains. We do recognize that you may need some metro stations and all of that. But in the meantime, what do? We've had consistent year of roads. But what is the result? Not one proper motorable roads connect any other regional capital to the national capital. Just give me one.
But they left behind the one connecting to Cape Coast. It's still on, but they were working on it when they left.
Was it more trouble?
No, but it's dust, a lot of dust. But maybe when the dust settles.
At this point, Duncan will have to tell us the kind of car you use. Because I live in the Kaswa enclave.
I use Tico.
And for the car I use, that road is not very motorable.
Yeah.
So if you are moving from Accra, just mention anywhere. And you struggle to get to one regional capital from the national capital by one good road. After several years.
Not to talk about regional capitals connecting to other regions.
After several years of road. So what have we done to ourselves? It is in that direction that His Excellency felt that, look, let's bring this big push. Try to open up the country. But I would say it is commendable, but will not solve this problem. It will improve our transportation, but there will still be the associated carnage on the roads.
What do you think can solve this immediate problem of what should be done? What should be done to the private sector?
So my immediate solution, to the extent that we still depend on the roads so much, that is the immediate, is that it must be government-led.
But my issue
private sector.
We are moving the conversation to road, but the issue now is that trotro people are not available, either deliberately or not deliberately, to ferry people.
Exactly.
What should be the immediate solution to that?
So the immediate solution, I think, is that, and I think yesterday the Vice President intimated that, and I said these are stopgap measures, and I want us to emphasize that they are not permanent solutions, that we need to have proper engagement, we need more buses on the road because private buses have broken down. Is either with the improved economy, there can be facilities for private owners to also buy new buses. And we have to support them. They must get realistic fares. As he has mentioned, look, if you bring 100 new buses, even the government struggles to maintain its own buses. How much more the private person? So we have to either we know the operators, either give them loan facilities with very low interest rate to be able to buy. That will bring an immediate relief. But going forward, we must be able to pay them something realistic that will allow them to be able to maintain these buses. But I'm saying that if we leave all this entirely to the private sector, it brings a challenge. If you go to countries that have worked and they continue to improve their transportation, there is dominance of state play. And the state may play a role in regulation and making sure that the private sector participate actively, but in a well-regulated space. If you leave things to chances, that is really risky. So I think that investment will help. More buses, supporting, engaging the transport union leaders. They may also bring very valuable solutions. She talked about more buses for buses like the Ayalolo transport system, the Metro Mass. All of those immediately will come in. But I am very confident that this situation will soon die down. But what I don't want us to do as a nation is to let this conversation die when this situation dies down. Because the population of Accra is projected to increase. We are around 5 million now. It is projected that by 2050, we'll hit 10 million. And if we are still using this firefighting approach, using only road transportation, by that time, the chaos we encounter will be worse than this.
Should we go and force the drivers to bring their buses on the road and insist that they don't charge the unapproved fees that they are charging?
That would be interesting. You would then have to go to a lot of garages. You go to the operator, he will show you garages where his cars are broken down, where the suspensions are all off, where the shocks are down. Are you going to fix them and ask them to bring that car to the road?
We can't use force. We have to negotiate.
That is why I say we have to engage them and find out. Some of them may need support to buy new buses. If we can do that, why not?
Okay.
And then once we do that, we have to look at sustainability. That is where the discussion of the tariffs come in. Fuel has dropped, which is very good. We will appreciate it if they reduce their fare, but the reduction should be such that it allows them to be able to maintain the vehicle. My last thing on the sabotage is that you see, the thinking behind why some people are thinking that they're sabotage. I don't think the sabotage that people have deliberately parked their vehicles. No. But when it is a normal thing in most Ghanaians to try to milk every situation and make money. If that's what we are describing of the sabotage, then there's an element of it. Okay. Where when you see a lot of people parked, waiting for a vehicle, then you decide that even though I was going to Domi, now I'm going to Achimota. That is a deliberate, intentional effort to make more money out of the situation. But I don't personally believe that someone will buy a vehicle and at this point where there is increased numbers, where he can make a lot of profit by making multiple trips, he'll go and park the vehicle. The other thing that may be explaining it is the traffic situation. If the trotro leaves Kaneshi to get to Kaswa and come back, maybe the person has 3 vehicles, 2 have broken down, and the one that goes to Kaswa is stuck in traffic.
It takes 2 hours to get there, or 3 or 4.
By the time it gets back, the queue is even longer. So we have to realize that we just have to increase the fleet, How do we help the private person increase their fleet? So let's have
So
that
the problem is a hydra head.
Yes, let's
We
look
need
at
to
that
deal with it.
constructive discussion and not apportion blames.
Various heads to this problem. Rigid, but one of the heads you were trying to deal with was train transport or rail transport. And your party said you were going to give us trains in the sky. It sounded absurd, but it's practical. I have seen the sky train in Dubai, and I know what it does. But 8 years on, you had a ministry for railway specific for 8 years. And yet, we're here still saying we need trains, we need trains, and we're having challenging transport. What should be the policy approach to dealing with our transportation crisis?
Well, thank you. And thanks to my brothers here. And as for Franklin, he seemed to be turned off by the state of affairs, but I encourage him to still have faith in Ghana, because very soon the better managers would come, and these affairs will be dealt with.
Okay.
But my brother said something. I want to follow up. He said these problems will die down soon. It's kind of interesting. How and how soon are you?
Yeah, I mean,
because you run our pairs. So how soon and
no,
and how exactly?
Okay, the natural traffic of the commuters, which is a surge immediately following the holidays.
Okay, so it's not
That's what
like
I'm
you
referring
mean
to.
that government has something up its sleeves?
No, government is handling this emergency with stopgap measures because it's an unusual peak in commuting, which we have to bring in stopgap measures. But I'm saying that we have a deliberate effort, and I've mentioned some of those things towards a solution.
So there's no plan to inject more vehicles?
Oh, we mentioned that the VIP mentioned it herself. That they are getting more buses.
He was not in town. The vice president said
he was out campaigning.
Because I'm tempted to think that this part of some drive to create, because the what government narrative is that there's some artificial shortage created by the private person.
No, they said they'll bring high occupancy buses. That's what the vice president said yesterday. She went to Ayalolo, went to Metro Mass.
So they have procured those already.
They are working on procuring them.
They have already procured them.
No, they are working on...
This is going to come and say, look at us, we have responded.
And they are working on procuring
It happens because with the NDC, you can't put anything past them. They can drive a certain narrative to create some of these environment and therefore come as the savior, having created, the problem here.
So they create a problem and solve it, and
then ask us to applaud them.
Like raising, the interest rates, bringing cost of living so high, and then coming to bring gold board and claiming that we are fixing things. So vote for us in 2024.
Honestly, you can't put anything past them. They are capable.
This was mischief. You didn't get it. I was targeting you.
But I just won't respond. But I'm just saying that because the NDC don't put anything past them, because they are capable of anything. But you see, the problem with transportation, and that's one problem I had with the Minister for Communication.
Communication or transport?
No, communication, Felix.
Felix
Kwachi.
Information.
No, I'm saying information.
Okay, so government communication.
I mean, So to the extent he's creating the impression that maybe some artificial shortage has been created and people are rent seeking, private people doing their own business are rent seeking as though government has some right in or share in their business, whereupon what drives their profit motive for coming to business is almost suddenly criminal, and government has a legitimacy to say that don't do that. I mean, it's very shocking to me. I don't think that government in any sense should be reading such motives into people's private business, which Umaru is founded to make profit. Now, government has a role to play. The transport issue that we're facing is a function of supply, right? There's a lot more commuters. Demand is high, but then you have less supply of transport available to move them. And that naturally, in a competitive environment, it drives price. And then you would imagine that we have quite a reasonable number of vehicles in Accra, for example, that should be able to move people and has been moving people fairly without all this drama. But then suddenly you have a situation that has come to a head the natural situation or natural question for government to ask is, so what is bringing about this problem? And I think that the suspicious or more or less the idea that people are being disingenuous by creating shortages, I don't think that that flies for me. But it's
so I don't think it's deliberate.
No, I don't think it's deliberate at all. And the government should not be driving that. It's a profit space. Those transport operators are driven by profit. And so they're in that business to make profit. And so where they have opportunities to make profit, they'll go for it. It's government's business to find out how do we ameliorate this plight that Ghanaians are in. Commendable, others have come up, I think the Dumelo situation you are talking about, come out to support his constituents and the rest of those. Those are ad hoc interventions that are there, but the more sustainable approach beyond the road issue, which is actually the NDPC has a framework which deals with, I think, from 2018, 2047 or so, we're supposed to achieve a certain road infrastructure development benchmarks. And once we do that, it will feed into the entire transport issue. But the question right now is, how is the private transport system regulated? Regulation is a problem. Instead of crying about people trying to make profit, which is their legitimate enterprise, how is government regulating, which is its mandate, regulate and create an environment for business to thrive? How is it regulating this transport, private transport organizations? GPRTU, for example, literally has control of all the bus terminals. Okay, how do you know what is happening there?
You can't regulate what you don't control.
Exactly.
I mean, what you don't own.
We don't own.
So
you understand?
the state cannot come, because if they say anything, they will carry their buses and
go home. So there must be some creative means to regulate their affairs. In fact, in that NDPC framework, there is an aspect of it critical, which is to empower the MDAs, so municipal assemblies, to play a key role, the MMDAs, in terms of how these transport people operate, so that the lorry parks and the rest of those will be co-managed and ensure that there is some oversight to ensure that these things are done properly. Apart from the road matter, which I think Duncan and Prof have talked about extensively, I think that we need to get to a point where we are zoning for all the vehicles that run. So you cannot just get up from your house, have a vehicle, you are part of GPRTU, and then you have your license, whatever, buy your income tax and everything, and then you just choose which road to go and drive on.
Shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be.
So there should be a framework.
There should be a framework that regulates, and that's where the assembly should come in, that help to regulate. So if you're going to operate within Accra, all the Accra assemblies must have a system. So I should be registered with maybe in Saomadeju, for example, the assembly, that my vehicle will ply from Saom to Accra. Okay, but even that, the zoning aspect of that should be that from Nsawam, you terminate at Achimota. Then you have high occupancy vehicles that can collect the people from there into the inner cities. That will deal with several issues to do with traffic as well as the mobility of people. You can take more people at a time. And so if we have government playing this kinds of role in the short term, we can deal with these matters and then not have a situation where people are trying to question the legitimate enterprise of people to make profit. So that's what I see that this government, one, the idea that I see they are trying to create a problem and show up tomorrow to be the heroes who solved it. And two, the idea that they are not being conscious of the environment we operate in. It's a free market. Okay, it's a free market. You cannot then be questioning people's drive to leverage the market for a solution.
During the Mills era, we had this bus rapid transport where we said we're going to have the median of the roads being dedicated to buses. Yeah. And that's how come we had that overhead at Graphic.
Yes.
I remember that because I was there when Chenche, former Accra mayor, and I think President Mills at the time cut the sword. Then they said they were changing the move from Accra to Kaswa to Adenta. So we have bus rapid transit, which became Ayalolo or the Gapti. Those buses are sitting at Adenta. Sure. We haven't deployed them because the problem is that you want to sit in a comfortable bus with charging port, air conditioning and everything, and yet it's moving at a snail pace. So what's the point of bringing high occupancy buses when you don't have dedicated lanes? The issue of dedicated lanes, and there's even this conversation around working on letting, peak hour lanes, so that you let people, if for instance in the evening going to Nungwa there's a lot of traffic, so open more lanes on the other side. I don't know if you think we should make it a law.
Elsewhere it is done, because which way traffic is moving, there's more dedication. So even on this side you can have those maybe from the evening traffic, people are going to maybe Adenta, for example. You dedicate this other extra road to them to be able to use. That's an ingenious way to solve the problem. But you see, I think that in the immediate term, rather than, instead of constructing, of course, that's a long-term solution where we can construct additional roads and dedicate them to certain buses and all of that. The zoning idea, if looked at properly, you see, when you from in Sawam all the way to Achimota, okay, barring the issues at Amasama and a little bit of traffic there, it is fairly straight. Okay, there isn't too much traffic to come in there. So when you come there, the bulk of the vehicle that are bringing people from there, when they terminate there, let's say about 50 cars does that. Okay, all the people come into Accra, about 50 trotro cars bring them. You have about 10 high occupancy vehicles to be able to carry all those people. You free the inner city. Yeah. So from Adenta all the way, when you get to, say, for example, Atomic, for example, you terminate the high occupancy. So you reduce the traffic in the space and have these vehicles move people. Okay. You can do that and sustain the situation until when you're able to expand the roads and have dedication, and that discipline grows, because you have a dedicated lane and other people are driving into it and create traffic. So I think that government should be rather sitting and thinking and seeing how it can solve the problem and leveraging regulation as well as all other tools available to them to solve the problem, rather than mounting the pulpit and blaming people who are just trying to make a living.
They're not blaming anybody.
Well, Phyllis is blaming people. He said they are rent-seeking. You've heard that. He said they are rent-seeking.
I've not heard. My ears,
but I'm telling you,
my ears have not worked since yesterday. This is the big issue on ChannelOne TV and on 97.3. Let me go on the phone lines and speak to Dr. Bernard Abeku-Atta. He's an urban transport planning analyst. You're welcome to the big issue, sir.
Thank you, Omaru, and thank you to the panel.
I've been to Kenya. I was in Nairobi, and I took a tuk-tuk. Not tuk-tuk, the other one. The tuk-tuk is tuk-tuk is the Pragya, matatu is the atrotro. I mean the moto one. The moto, they have a name for it. Boda, yes. That's what they call it.
Yes, boda.
I took a boda, and I ordered it via the Uber platform. Now, what I noticed was that there's a circle that has been done in the inner part of the city where the boda is not allowed to cross. If you cross and get in there, you have to pay extra. So for some reason, they freed up their capital. So in the city center, Nairobi, the tuk-tuk cannot go there, the boda cannot. Even the matatu, if you go, you have to pay extra. Could that be the solution to our problem here? Or the solution would be big buses in the city, or the solution would be trains? You are the analyst and expert. Tell me.
Okay, thank you very much, Omaru. And let me once again say thank you to everyone on the panel. The truth is that every city is organic and unique. And it is based on how the city wants to function that you design all these things around it. So you cannot pick a particular solution from one city or one country and then drop it into your city. Okay. We tried to do that with the BRT, which is Latin America experimented from Brazil through Colombia and all that. It is a very good system. But as to whether that will fit into Ghana, it's a different thing. But let me also be quick to state that the whole process for establishing this bus rapid transit and the transport reforms and stuff, I took part in it from 2007 through to the time when the ILO was established. So I do have some fair idea of what it is. Now, having said that, I want to state clearly that we need, first of all, to know, and I keep saying this over and over and over, we need to know the kind of city we want to develop. Once you have a fair idea of the kind of city you want to develop, all other things fit into it. The governance, the infrastructure, the transport, the health, education, they all fit into that one. It is one clear thing we have not done for our major cities. If we talk of London, London we know is a major city for the international financial market. When you talk of New York, we know that they determine prices of goods around the world and they shape the world. If you come to Africa, we know Johannesburg has its function it performs. When we come to Accra, what is the function of Accra? Except to say that we say Accra is the gateway to West Africa. So we must be very clear, first of all, a clear vision. And the vision will tell us the transport vision that we are looking at, public transport vision that we are looking at. Now, we need to be very clear. Is it access that we want to enhance, or it is just the transportation that we are looking at? That is the movement of the buses and stuff. If it is access, then it includes walking, it includes sitting areas for people, it includes open spaces, it includes clear areas and all that. We need to be very, very clear. So for me, it's one of the key things we have not really answered. The matatus and all those things, they are all part of the system in Africa. But you cannot do matatus in Lagos, even though it has a different form in Lagos. So we must be very, very clear. Dakar is doing something fantastic. Dakar has moved to mass transit, which is also in our transport policy in Ghana, that the government is going to look at mass transit, move people en bloc, looking at the use of high occupancy vehicles, and then ensuring that there is dedicated lanes and all those things. That is how we want to go. If that is it, let us go that way.
Okay.
So for me, Omaro, my initial comment is, every city is unique and it's organic.
And deal with it separately. On the specific issue of what we are seeing at the apparent or seeming shortage of mini buses on the streets, leading to the struggle of passengers and the unilateral increase of fares by drivers, how can we deal with that?
Okay, now we need to establish how this has happened, because it will be very difficult to say we are undoing. We need to do a gradual transformational process to do that one. Now, if you take cities, we can take lessons from some cities. If you take some cities, the inner peripheries of the inner perimeters of the city, they have decided to place what we call congestion charges just because they do not want to have major congestions in the city. We see that in London and other places. We see that in Lyon, in France, and all that. Now, the transport operators must be regulated. And please, let me state this clearly, that every system in the country, in the city, is owned by the city authorities or the government. So we must have system owners. If somebody wants to fly into Accra, he might have his own aeroplane, but he must be registered with Ghana Civil Aviation Authority, and he must get clearances from Ghana Airport Company, and they must comply. So the system is owned by the Ghana Civil Aviation Authority, and it is managed by Ghana Airport companies. And that is the same approach that must be applied to public transport. The city authority has that system ownership authority, and they determine how they want to regulate, to register, to do that. So that if we are going to allow trotros, we are going to allow bicycles, we are going to allow motorcycles, we are going to allow tuk-tuks or three-wheelers, they must all be regulated. Until we establish the regulatory regime and procedure, we will just be doing lip service to things. And that is my take on that.
Should we buy buses and compete with the GPRTU as a state, or we should beg the GPRTU and say, we know there are challenges, but consider us? Or we should force them?
Okay, so three things. Should we buy buses? Should we allow GPRTU to operate the way they are operating? Or we should force them? These are three things. We cannot force GPRTU unless they are not regulated. And even when they are regulated, it's enforcement that must be put in place. Now, GPRTU came into the system from the early 80s. They have been there before, but because there was a gap in the public transport system, which would require maybe another day for us to discuss. Before GPRTU, there was the Omnibus Services Authority law There was the omnibus services and all those things. Then there was a collapse somewhere in the late 70s because of the revolution, as well as also there was the infilling of the GPRTU. And then because of one or two reasons that are beyond our understanding now, even though we know, they filled in the gap and they performed the function. But we need to get them now to acknowledge the fact that there is a system owner. We are in a regime. There is a system owner. That system owner must guide and provide the way they must function. And they have to comply, or be encouraged to comply with it. Now, about government buying buses, that is the prerogative of government. But I think two regulations in the late 60s by the first revolution, and then the second was in the Achampon regime, came up with two laws. And those two laws ensured that we moved from state control to deregulation. And we have been deregulating even through President Kufuor up till now. So if government wants to buy buses, I think it must follow a particular procedure. The format is there. And we can assist to look at the format. Okay. You know, government should not be directly involved in the provision of these services. Government can encourage, government can support, government can provide a necessary enabling environment. Okay. So that is what I think.
Thank you so much for speaking.
You're welcome.
That's Dr. Bernard Abeku-Atta. He's a public transport or an urban transport planning analyst. This is the big issue on 97.3 CTFM and on ChannelOne television. Your messages have been coming through. This one says, very laudable and good news about government's plans to provide passenger buses. This really demonstrates government's commitment to be answerable to the citizenry. I think the minority argument about LGBTQ should be taken with a pinch of salt. That's Jones Aduboy Inla. This message says, I think Richard should take political swipe from the conversation. This is a national issue that all hands should be on board to tackle. What the government should also know is that commuters don't enjoy sitting in big buses due to time constraints and duration to get to one's destination. You can send your message to 020-444-7033. 020-444-7033. That's a WhatsApp number, or 0543-989-699. You send your messages and I'll read them for you. This is ChannelOne Newsroom and also ChannelOne Television and 97.3 CTFM. The big issue is the program. Umaru Sandamadu is the name. I am in studio with Professor Titus Beyo, why am I saying Beyo, of the NDC, Richard Ahiagba of the MP.